Hi guys, so you can see when you look at my design that I have divided my design up into several circular areas. So I have one circular area here, you can see the outline. I've got a second circle here, a third, and then a fourth. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different areas in my design. We are going to use this for 2 different purposes. I'm going to talk about them one at a time, but just to give you an overview, we are going to use these divisions to help with filling in some of our negative spaces with pattern and creating variety. That's the first thing we're going to do. That's what we'll be doing today. We'll also be using these circles to help us determine what medium we're going to be using in our last, when we start to add color, what mediums we're going to be using. Because when you get to a new circular area, you're going to be changing medium. So I might work in watercolor out here, then colored pencil, then something else as I go into the different circles, all right? We'll get into that in a little while, a little bit more in detail, but let's start just with thinking about negative spaces and working with some pattern in our design. So my design already has a fair amount of pattern because my bats are hairy, so there's a lot of activity there. I looked at a couple of places in my design where I thought, well, maybe I could add a little bit there. I think the center of any design is going to become a focal point, and mine, you look at it kind of like a bullseye. I feel like my center needs something more eye-catching here, other than these little bits of hair. So I'm going to create a design to go here. I also see a couple different opportunities, like for instance here, where I've got some negative space among some texture where I think I might do something interesting. I also have, this area right around the top of my keys where maybe I could put a little bit of texture in as well. I don't want to do a lot in these areas where the bats are because they've already got the furry texture on them, so I don't want to that to be overwhelming. And I do like the simplicity of the keys on the outside, so I don't think that I'm going to put any pattern on this outer rim. But here's a couple of things that I played around with. I put them on tracing paper so I could try them out. I thought it might be cool to do some little crystal gem-like things in this little key area over that. I also thought, well, maybe I could do a repeated circle motif. I tried this out. You don't need to do this on tracing paper, but I did because I wanted to try some options and I wanted to see what I'd like the best. I thought out here behind the keys, it might be cool to do some little bats, some miniature bats, silhouettes that are flying out from behind the keys. I don't want to distract from a lot of the kind of clean shapes that are out here, but I might have just a couple coming up and out. Now this part, when I'm adding pattern, it doesn't need to be symmetrical in the way that my base design did. These things might become asymmetrical, and that's okay, because really what I'm dealing with right now is looking at the negative space and creating some variety by filling some of those spaces with pattern. All right, so that's where I'm thinking on mine. Let's look at a couple of other examples too, so you can get some ideas. I would say this person, look how much negative space they have. This person would really benefit from breaking theirs down into circles, as I have, and thinking about what they might add to these negative spaces, what kind of pattern to create some variety. I do love the shapes of the flamingos up here and the shapes of the clocks, but they could add a lot of texture and detail and variety into these shapes down here. I can see they're starting to think about maybe adding some pattern into one of these positive, well, that may be a negative space there actually. Yes, it is, between the legs of the flamingo. They're thinking about what kind of pattern to add here already. They're adding some over here as well. They're thinking through it. If you're really stumped on what kind of pattern to add, like really, I recommend the tracing paper method, because there's so many different patterns beyond stripes and circles that you can use. So let's take a look at a couple more. This is another good example of one that could benefit from some pattern. He's actually starting to work with a little color in the middle, it looks like, but all this negative space, right? Each of these circles, you can fill with a different sort of pattern. I can see he's played around with some stripe. I don't think that he liked the stripe, and he came back and erased it. So what I would recommend is like thinking of one pattern to go in this area, and then something to contrast in this area, the next circle. So within each circle, when you get to the end of a circle, change your pattern. And you know, I would say you might make some of your circles solids. You might not put a pattern at all in some of them. With mine, I had some areas that I felt were already busy enough. Now this person has a lot of negative space. I would strongly encourage them to think about adding some pattern. We're going to look at a couple more examples where the students have really added a lot of pattern already, so you can see. You can also look at the examples on the website as well. So this design is based on a Luna moth, and you can see this thing is absolutely full of this really sort of organic stacked circle pattern. I feel like they did give me a variety of scale for this, so really big to really small, but the pattern is very similar throughout. I do like how it plays off of the clock pattern over here as well, and I think it is successful. It doesn't show variety from circle to circle, but it's still a strong design, I think. You can see here, again, they have the opportunity to put something interesting, interesting focal point in that center. When you're adding your pattern, I don't think that you need to worry about symmetry at this point. When you add your piece in the center, you can add it, you know, so that it will be upright in one direction. Like right now with this design, it is radial symmetry, so I could turn it in any way and that would still be up. When you put the design in the center, you might choose to have something that is not symmetrical, okay? You can choose to add something in that center that you would like to add that would go with your piece, all right? I think I might add, I kind of have a bat theme going on with mine. I might add like a tiny haunted looking castle or something like that. This is another piece that has a lot of really cool patterns. So you can see in some of the negative spaces between the wings here, they've done that sort of repeated circle motif. They've also done that out here at the corners. And in between, they've got these really cool cogs to create a pattern as well. Lots of pattern in the wings of the butterfly. I like how their centerpiece is sort of almost like a cross-like design here. Again, they have an opportunity to put something really interesting in the center. You know, it might even be, you know, if they have so much activity on the outside, they might leave this area more open and do washes in the center to give this important, despite having lots of pattern, to give your eyes some solid areas to rest. So I don't know. I think right now I kind of like this more open in the center, to be honest. I might do a wash of color, but not have you know, a lot of pattern in this area. That would still bring a different kind of attention to that center area. Whatever you decide to do with your center area, I think you should consider it. You could add a pattern to it of your own. You could add a pattern to it. You could choose to not add a pattern because there's so much pattern around it. You could choose to have something that's not radial symmetry, but becomes a nice focal point in the center that has something to do with the rest of your design. So maybe like with this design, I see these small, the butterflies. Maybe I'd have a butterfly, you know, in the center that set here and occupy some of this space. Or maybe I would have a flower in the center, or an eye staring out at me. I don't know. You can use your imagination and decide what kind of centerpiece you'd like to have for your work. So those two things I would think about while we're still in this inking phase. What do you want to do with the centerpiece? If you want to add a design, this is the time to do it. And also, coming back to this, right? Put your circles on your design in pencil, right? Your concentric circles using compass or a strip of paper. I showed how to do that in the last video. And each time you come to a new circle, you can change pattern and fill up some of these negative spaces. You don't have to fill up every negative space, but some of them we do want to create some variety, and we want these to be intricate designs as well. I am definitely going to consider something for the centerpiece, because I think my centerpiece is super boring right now. And I'm going to consider, I think I kind of like the crystal one. I think I'm going to put the crystals here, and I'm going to have some bats kind of coming out, bat silhouettes coming out behind the keys. Not too much, just a little bit to give some pop, and maybe bring some strong solid blacks out here to the outside to complement what's going on in the eyes. All right, so that's what I'm gonna do for mine. I can't wait to see what you come up with for yours, and how you choose to incorporate even more pattern into your inking. All right.